Today's video, how I see the USA as a European.
We are Lisa and Greg, an American couple living abroad in Spain. If you're curious about the crazy, funny, and surprising differences between the US and Europe, you came to the right place. And we're on our way to 10,000 subscribers, so go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be a part of the party. All right, so let's see here. This is Lucile.
Lucile.
And Lisa will include a link in the description so you can show Lucile some love. And what are your thoughts on this before we start?
I believe, I just saw the very beginning and she said that she's from France.
Okay.
And well, it says there she's only been there a month. So.
In France?
No, she was in the US. She stayed in the USA for a month.
Oh, okay.
So she just has some opinions about the US after a month.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, we got more than a month of experience in the US.
Yeah.
So we might have some opinions too.
That's
All right,
true.
let's see what we got here.
I've just spent the last month crossing the United States, and as a French person, I have to say that I have a lot of thoughts. So the US is such a fascinating place to me, and it feels like a lot of people have strong opinions of the country. Like some people really love it, some people absolutely hate it, and I want to give you my unique perspective as someone who once lived in the US.
It does seem like it is when in regards to the United States, it is a hate or love, or you either hate it or you love it. I mean, that's just it.
That's true.
There's no in between.
Right. That's
but
true.
Has chosen to leave it for Europe. But first, I want to tell you about a few thoughts I have about the US after this 1 month journey. So during my trip, I crossed the US from east to west, going from New York to San Francisco by train.
Wow.
And this took
By train?
By train.
It took a long time. I stopped her because she was about to say this took something. So let's see.
Okay.
US from east to west, going from New York to San Francisco by train. And this took around 4 days. So my first impression is that the US is such a massive country.
4 days is not bad.
That's not bad. That's
to
not
cross
bad.
the United States.
That's not bad.
And hopefully she tells us how she did that. What train does that?
Probably Amtrak.
It's the only train there is.
It's the only train
really?
there is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like France, where I'm from, in comparison, is roughly the size of Texas. And you know, even though I feel like I know the US pretty well, since I used to live there for a few years, my partner of 8 years is from Chicago, and I've personally been to around 15 states. However, the country is just so big that I feel like I have so much more to discover. And I do feel that life in the US can be very different depending on where you live. Obviously, living in a big city like New York is not the same as, for example, living in rural Texas, where I've also been. But there's many different local cultures depending on where you are in the country. But anyway, just crossing the US, the other thing I felt is that the nature is so beautiful and there's so much empty space and
I just realized I have like a frown on my face. Like I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why. But
You're
man,
bitter?
I got some like visceral reactions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's
To
funny.
the US.
Yeah. Oh.
is that the nature.
I don't know how I feel. I do feel one of the things I will never bash the United States for is the nature.
Yeah.
The beauty of each state.
That's true, but I guess what goes in my head is like, as she's saying these things that sound very positive, I'm just thinking in my head, yeah, but what about the guns?
Yeah.
Or what about the healthcare? Or what about this? What about that? Like, that's just what's going on in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds really good, what she's saying, but I'm like, what about all the other stuff?
I think of when she said each state is different.
Yeah.
It is extremely true.
Yeah.
Like, I think I know there's a lot of Europeans that don't like the United States for good reason.
Right.
But I think you would like California better than you would Texas.
Yeah.
I think you would like Oregon better than you would Mississippi. It's just kind of like that.
I mean, yeah, that's true. But my ears are still getting hot. I just feel that. Okay. All right.
No.
Yeah.
Nature is so beautiful and there's so much empty space and untouched natural beauty that changes quite a lot from a state to another. For example, we crossed Colorado and we went into the snowy Rockies, which are very different from, let's say, the type of nature you can see in Utah, which we also crossed. And by the way, from the train, there were places that we could only see from the train. Like no roads go there. And this really showed me how much empty space there is in the US. And in France and in Europe in general, there's way fewer places like that. I feel everything is so much smaller. It is way harder to find a place where there's not a little village or there's not other people. And you know, taking a train across the US is
Amtrak.
Yeah, it's Amtrak.
Yeah.
Obviously more about enjoying the journey than going efficiently from point A to point B. But it made me think quite a lot about how the US is still a very car-centric society. In Europe, we have a really good network of bullet trains and trains that go pretty much everywhere. And obviously this comes with the size of the countries. France is pretty tiny if you compare it to the US. But I feel our network of trains and public transport is really good. And you don't need a car as much. And just to give you an idea, my boyfriend Bobby, who is from Chicago, he got his license when he was 16 and he started driving at 14. Well, on my side, you can start driving at 16 and then get your license when you're 18 in France. I actually only got my license a few years ago because I live in a big city, I don't need to use a car, and I just didn't feel the need because I have a bike and I have public transport. And I do feel that some places in the US are just meant for cars. Like if you walk there, people will look at you and think you're a bit crazy. Like for example, when I went to Buc-ee's in Texas, I didn't have a car and I had to sit on.
Buc-ee's is amazing.
Buc-ee's is amazing.
We used to live in Texas, and Buc-ee's, I don't know.
It's
one way
clean.
to describe it is, it's super clean. And there is, if a regular store has 10 boxes of XYZ, Buc-ee's has about 1,000 boxes of XYZ.
More convenience. More options. Typical American.
It is amazing. It is amazing.
Yeah.
On the ground in the parking lot to eat my food because there was no other space for me to sit. And you know, you're probably wondering what I was expecting because Buc-ee's is a gas station. But I do feel that even in gas stations in Europe, you do have more places where you can sit. You don't have to eat in your car. Recently, cars have gotten even bigger. Even in New York City, it feels like everyone has one of those massive trucks or SUVs. And
FYI, we make fun of these trucks too.
Yeah, we really do.
Especially the ones that have these, the
lifted trucks?
Yeah, the lifted trucks.
We feel they're trying to compensate for something.
Yeah, because it's usually little men.
Yes. That's me. That's me. It's just
kind of true.
It's okay.
It's usually like big, bulky.
Yeah, just a certain image. But yeah. Oh, wow.
That's total stereotype.
Yeah.
And in New York City, it feels like everyone has one of those massive trucks or SUVs. And for me, as someone who likes to bike or walk, it feels a tiny bit less safe because I feel that these are so big that if they hit me, I will die on the spot. At the moment, I'm currently pretty excited about cars because we got to test a self-driving car when we were in SF. So as you can see, there was absolutely no driver. It was just us and the car. And I can tell you that it was a bit freaky at first, but it was also so fun getting to try an absolutely new thing. And that's overall something I really love about the US is this openness people have to new ideas and innovation. Like you can rebuild.
She was in California. Noted.
Yeah.
California.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think that's what she had to be?
Mm-hmm. She said it. She was in, I think she was saying she was in San Francisco.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's interesting because she's saying in the US, you can test these cars and blah, 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 blah. But that's not everywhere in the US.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of places in the US where they hate those things because it's not driven with gas and it uses electricity and it has all these, Green New Deal and all this kind of stuff. So they hate those things.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess that's the backside of it. That does sound amazing though. You get to go drive a car, if you want to live in California and pay $8,000 gazillion dollars.
You get what you pay for.
You see why we left, why we live in Spain? Because I just can't take it.
I know.
I'm just I knew it, but now it's like, it's in my face right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's funny because she's talking good about
America. I know.
And you would think that we would be like, yeah.
I don't know. I think there's some defensiveness. Like I almost don't even want to let it come into me that it might be good to go back. Like almost,
Right. I can see that.
Yeah. All right. Breathe. Okay.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Okay.
openness people have to new ideas and innovation. Like, you can rebuild your own life how you want it here. And I feel in France there's more a set way to do things. And I've personally loved this influence in my life of, following your own path and trying new things, because it's what pushed me to quit investment banking, which was the career path I studied all my life for, and instead to do what I'm doing now, which makes me so much happier. And maybe one of the reasons why things are like that is because the US is such a diverse country that's built on immigration. If you take the example of Bobby's family, they all came to the US many, many years ago, 200 plus years ago, because they were looking for a better life for themselves.
Yeah, and today they wouldn't be able to go.
I know.
Sorry, it's just...
I would say, because people are going to say Europe is very diverse. That is true too. So we're having a hard time. I can see people would say Europe is a continent, United States is a country. So the reason Europe is diverse too.
Right.
They speak different languages. Yeah. They have different cultures and traditions and religions and history. Yeah. And U.S. is diverse because a lot of the Europeans
took their diversity
and
over
there. Yeah.
Years ago, 200 plus years ago, because they were looking for a better life for themselves. Whereas my family, on the Spanish side, my dad is Spanish, has lived in the same village for at least 10 centuries, and only the younger generation started to move out. And Europe as a continent is obviously very diverse. There's many literal countries that are next to each other. So a lot of people don't think too much about the US being diverse because people speak the same language and live in the same country, as compared to Europe, where I can take a 2-hour train and be in a fully different country with a different language and a different currency. But in the US, there's actually many communities from all over the world. And one thing that surprised me at first is how important heritage is. Like, people will tell you I'm half German, I'm Italian, when they mean obviously one of their grandparents came from one of these countries. And one thing that actually shocked me is that people will actually ask you directly about your ethnicity. Like, people will ask you, what is your ethnicity? In France, this is such a big no-no. Ethnic statistics actually were forbidden after World War II. So you can't just ask people their ethnicity, for example, at a job.
Wait, what? The 1978 law that bans collecting ethnic data has roots in France's shame over collaboration with the Nazis during the Second World War, when Jews were marked with yellow stars and sent to death camps.
How interesting, because it is freely asked in the United States. Like,
I ask that all the time.
I was going to say, when you do Medicare, you always ask them, what is the term you use? You don't say ethnicity.
Just your background or
your race.
You mean in my,
at work? Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the survey question.
Yeah,
you ask what your race and ethnicity.
And then they usually say, I'm human.
Right.
But race and ethnicity. Everywhere it's asked that in the United States. And a lot of times it's optional.
It's almost one of the things that I use when I'm having a conversation with somebody. Like, if they have a really cool name, I'll be like, what origin is that name or something like that.
We do that.
Ooh, okay. Well,
but I can see this. I can see why they don't want to ask, because the Jews were marked.
Yeah.
So they were labeled by their ethnicity, and so it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right.
After World War II. So you can't just ask people their ethnicity, for example, at a job interview or for anything that's official. And the first time I was asked about my ethnicity, it actually made me feel super bad. I was like, why do you want to know? Why does it matter? Because it has been ingrained in my mind that it's just another tool for discriminating against people. There's way more to this topic, but this is supposed to be a light and fun video, so we won't get too deep into that. To keep it light though, one thing I do love about the US is that people are so nice. It is so easy to talk to people. In the train, we were seated next to complete strangers, and it was just so fun to talk to them. We had great conversations, and that has been my overall experience in the US. US, from random strangers complimenting me randomly to cashiers making small talk, or even my all-time favorite, which is older ladies calling me honey or sweetie. I really love it. And obviously this is more true outside of New York City. Like, for example, when I was in Texas to film my Buc-ee's video, everyone was so nice. I had the best small talk there. But at first, when I moved to the US, I didn't really master the art of small talk because it's not really a thing in France. And I feel there's a way of making small talk that's just not talking about the weather, but also keeping things light as well. But before...
I think this is sad because the United States was like that, where before politics got in the way and politics became
that's
huge,
true.
and really Trump is what did it.
When it kind of started.
Yeah, because everybody was nice and like you didn't know what their political thoughts were, which meant everything was really buried, whether they were racist or whether they were...
you just didn't know what people's lives were like. Yeah.
Or how they really thought.
Right.
Whether they lacked empathy or not. You didn't know.
Yeah.
And now we all know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've had it where people are really, really nice, but then they turn around and it's like, oh, you have a Trump hat on.
Right.
So I know you're not ingrainedly moral and nice because you have that on. And it's like, but you were just super nice to me. Yeah. And so, I don't know.
That's a hard one.
Because there are some nice people there, but there are also some a-holes.
There are really nice people there. And I mean, I guess I could see that is one of the good things that happens in America. So
a lot of friends are nice.
Yeah.
Most of them live in California.
Yeah. But a lot of time, Okay, let's just keep going.
Okay.
Right. Small talk that's just not talking about the weather, but also keeping things light as well. But before I tell you my favorite thing about the US, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Vasco. Okay. The Vasco translator.
And if you haven't seen our videos, we always like to play these because they're kind enough to let us use their videos to make these videos for you. So, and of course, we'll include a link in the description so you can go and support them if you want to take advantage of this. And you can fast forward past this if you would like.
Okay.
Translator V4 is a portable translator that allows you to connect with 90% of the world population with over 80 languages supported. And I was really impressed by how convenient this translator is. Like, it works right off the box with no setup needed. Also, since my native language is French and my boyfriend Bobby is American, I just had the perfect way of testing it with us having a conversation in our native languages, and it worked really well. La vitesse de traduction est incroyable.
The translation speed is amazing.
It's true. Yeah, it works so fast, right? Wow. You can also use it for photo and text translations. Plus, you can use your translator anywhere you have cell phone reception because they give you free and unlimited internet for life, which is so convenient since you can just turn on your Vasco Translator V4 and start translating. So if you want to try it, click the link in the description below and use my code for a discount.
Yeah.
Another thing I love about the US is how festive it is as a country. Like, there's always something going on. We started our trip around the Halloween period in New York City, and the decor was so cool. All the houses had this very spooky fall decor. People dressed up on the day
Halloween.
off. Little kids were trick-or-treating. And that's something I've personally took from the US culture and added in my everyday life. France is not as festive as the US. We do celebrate holidays, but it's a bit less intense. It's maybe more seen as a religious thing. So now I'm pretty much celebrating everything. I'm doing Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, obviously. Was already doing it. Valentine's Day.
I don't know. I just have like...
Yeah, we get mad about all these.
We get mad about this because it's like some man-made American thing for people to make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, obviously. Was already doing it. Valentine's Day, Easter, 4th of July, you name it, I'm gonna celebrate it. And I've also seen this festive atmosphere in sports. Over the years, I've become a bit of an NFL fan, and a lot of people have commented about my Chicago Bears mug. And I know it's a tough team to support because they do tend to lose a lot, but it has been so fun. Like, I feel sports in the US is way more inclusive and family friendly, where I do feel sometimes in Europe, and of of course, I'm making a big generalization. People use that as an excuse to get drunk. All right, I've said it. If you're a European sports fan, just come at me in the comments. That's just my personal opinion. But those game tickets, they're very expensive in the US. And that's a thing that I'm not always a fan of. I feel the US as a whole is more of a consumer society than France. And of course, we can't idealize France. France is also a consumer society, but I feel a lot of things in the US are made to make you spend money. And as a whole, it's way nicer to shop in the US. The return process is so much easier. There's usually no questions asked. When in France, you're not always sure a store is going to take your return. There's so many sales in the US. And I personally like making bigger purchases, like when I bought my computer or my phone in the US. But in return, there's more big chains, which I'm not always a fan of. I do try to go to those smaller shops, like this super cute bagel shop that we went to in New York instead of, bigger chains, because I feel these have a soul, like they feed me on a deeper level. It's so nice to see the people who actually make your food than, just eating food that's industrially made. But I won't go into too much detail because I've already made so many videos about food. Obviously, people have bigger houses than in France, and people tend to shop more for stuff, always getting the newer thing, newer car, newer clothes, phones, and so on. And you can really see that at thrift shops in the US when I thrift. There's always stuff from that season that's also being sold in shops right now, or from just a few seasons ago, whereas in France, in thrift shops, you can find stuff that's way older. The other thing that kind of surprised me is the cult of credit cards. People love having credit card points and talking about credit cards. I do feel while points are great, there's still money that you have to spend, and credit card debt is more of an issue in the US than in France.
And well, the US has a credit score. Like we have a FICO score that we use to get a car loan, cars, a house. Yeah. So we're dependent on it. So we have to get these credit cards. Otherwise we won't have credit. And
you can't get things on credit that cost $400,000-$500,000.
Yeah. So you need to have it. So it's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Still money that you have to spend, and credit card debt is more of an issue in the US than in France. Another thing that's different in France is the price that's shown, for example, on a restaurant menu is the price you're actually gonna pay. All the prices are inclusive of tax and tip in France. And don't even get me started about tipping, because I do feel things have gotten a bit out of hand with the iPad machines. I always try to tip generously, and I always feel like I'm disappointing someone or I'm not tipping enough. And this really adds up. For example, I'm not getting as much coffee outside as I used to, because now with the iPads, I feel bad if I'm not giving a tip to the person who gave me a drip coffee. Anyways, I had promised you to tell you a bit more about why I left the US and if I would ever return. And the main reason why I don't live in the US is because when I was living in New York City, my visa was tied to my employment in investment banking. And when I became self-employed, I could only visit the US and not work there. So it was just easier to leave. At the moment, in any case, I would not qualify to be a permanent resident because I am not anywhere more than 6 months a year. Obviously, there's more to that, so feel free to leave a comment if you're really into immigration stuff. But if I had to go back, I would definitely want to be close to friends or family. So New York City, where I've lived, I have a lot of friends there. It has always felt like home to me. And I also love Chicago, where Bobby's from. We also have a lot of friends there, and it's always fun to visit and go back. But I wouldn't be against trying another US state. During my travels, my two favorite US states were Colorado for the nature and also Texas for the people and the food. As much as I love Texas barbecue, I'd probably miss the food quality in France. And if you want to know more about what I mean, I've made a full video breakdown comparing the food quality in France to the US. And you should go watch it next. I'll see you there. I've just spent...
I always wonder about the food and tummy issues. Like, have there ever, do you guys, our European friends, if you've ever gone to the States, do you have stomach issues from the different ingredients and different preservatives we put in it? So I've always wondered about that.
Well,
kind of off topic a little bit, but
yeah, no,
because she mentioned the food.
I know, but I just think that, oh man, I just got so many emotions and thoughts and feelings behind this.
I don't know.
I guess it's all relative.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on your perspective and what's important to you in life. So, you know, a lot of the things that she said were amazing were football, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't like football, so I don't go to football games, so I don't really care.
Yeah.
And, you know, and one of the reasons you don't go to football games is because, like she said, tickets are $180, $200, you know, $300, something like that. And then you go there and a beer costs $12 and parking is $40 and, you know, it adds up. Those are all things that nobody talks about. Then the cost of living, I'm sure she didn't mention that, but she went to two of the most expensive cities or states in the country, in New York and Chicago. And it was like, Chicago does have some issues, but in terms of safety and things like that. But I'm pretty sure the places she went didn't involve gun violence. I don't know. It's just all these things that I'm just thinking that.
I mean, she has a boyfriend there, so she sees it probably differently.
I guess so. And America's not like the worst place on earth, but for the things that are important to me and my family, I don't know. I just don't want to be there. She could probably make the same video on the other side of everything she said that makes you just not want to go there. So
yeah, she just didn't mention all the bad stuff. She mentioned purposely. It sounds like the good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I don't mean to rain on her parade, but
no. Let's see what people are saying though.
All right, let's see what the people got to say. And this video got me going.
I know.
Jesus. All right, let's see here. Let me just blow this up, see what the people got to say. They really got stuff to say here.
Yeah.
All right. I love your take. I'm going to read this one.
Okay.
I love your take as a foreigner on the USA. It reminds me of my own impression when I moved to USA 43 years ago. I left Poland after 2 years of university on a one-semester student visa and got stuck here due to a martial law lockdown of Poland on December 13th of 1981. My visa was extended and I was able to get legal employment and enrollment at university. I said, I got stuck, but the truth is I took to USA like a duck to water. I love everything.
Interesting.
Good job.
And that was 4 months ago.
Yeah,
this was not long ago. Even with everything that's happening.
Yeah.
People still like it.
All right. You immediately nailed the two things I tell foreigners about the USA. One, it's huge. Two, there is a lot of diversity in climate, geography, attitude, wealth, etc.
Yeah.
Any statement that begins all Americans are is just begging to be disproven. Much safer to say many Americans are. Yeah.
It's just the same as all Europeans. You just can't do it.
Right. All right. Should I read one more?
Sure.
Okay. When Americans ask about ethnicity, we're generally wondering what ancestry we have in common. I'm proud to be German and Irish, and to bump into someone from one of those countries is a treat. Oops. It's a treat. Many of us know not just what country our ancestors are from, but what city as well. Expect lots of excitement and questions.
Interesting. It's because Americans don't feel like they have to have that connection because they're not born in a country that has a lot of culture and history like a lot of Europeans are. So it's kind of cool. It's like, ooh, I'm Italian.
I think it's interesting. I'm just really having like a realization of the lens that I see America through. Because whenever when she was talking about her ancestors that came there 200 years ago and all this kind of stuff, like in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, that's great. My ancestors were brought there on a boat as slaves, or, or even this stuff here, what all these people talking about your ancestry. They just want to know where your grandparents are from. Like, well, my grandparents don't even know their name. Well, well, not grandparents, but great, further back in generations. But I don't know. So I just have
your last name.
Yeah,
is potentially a slave owner's last name. Yeah,
I'm sure it was, because 80-something%, according to Ancestry or whatever, 80-some% of my ancestry is from Africa.
Right, 88.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure my, great grandfather was named Louis from Africa. So, all right. Okay, this just gets me going. I'm sorry.
Okay. Maybe we should stop.
All right. Okay. All right. I'm glad to be here.
Okay.
I'm glad I'm in Europe.
Yes.
We did good.
We're glad to be here. Yes.
All right. Okay. 100%. As always, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you on the next video. Peace.
Bye.